Hello and welcome to this simple tutorial on how to use Noeko. Now, if you're not familiar with Noeko, Noeko is an intelligent knowledge base that self-organizes as you use it so that you can focus on thinking instead of manually organizing your knowledge. With that said, without further ado, let's just get into how it can be used in practical context in order to research, understand concepts, and build a long-term retrieval engine that you can use to leverage knowledge over time instead of building a knowledge graveyard of unutilized ideas and insights. Without further ado, let's just check out the interface. So, jumping right into things, this is the Noeko dashboard. Once you enter the application, this is the dashboard that you'll see. Now, over on the left, you have relevant context, just some bird's eye view insights from your knowledge base. Then, in the center, we have 4 different widgets, navigational buttons, and different actions that you can take. Over on the right, you have your right sidebar, which in most pages of the application contains a search bar that you can use to search anything in your knowledge base. And then you, of course, have things like a profile icon. This is my favorite button down here. We want all the feedback that we can get. Please press this button and give us feedback. We love to hear your thoughts. With that said, the first thing that you'll see in the widgets section is the scratch pad. With that said, more on those ideas later on. Next, let's look over at this task list. So, every day you'll see all of the tasks that you have scheduled for this particular day. You can schedule tasks whatever you'd like, and then you can go between different views in order to see what are your tasks for today, yesterday, tomorrow, etc. Now, tasks in Noeko are an experimental feature, so don't expect them to be perfect, but we would love to hear all of the feedback that you have on how we can make tasks better. With that said, every day you will see all of the different tasks that you have scheduled, and this allows you to check them off periodically throughout the day and manage things on a day-to-day basis. With that said, the next item in your widget section will be recent rabbit holes. These are something that we'll get into a little bit more later, but for now, imagine them as a research tool to easily add a ton of different information into the same space and go over it later on. Then we have tags. Tags are a fairly familiar concept for those in the PKM space, but for those not familiar, a tag has a name and can be applied to different artifacts of knowledge. That way you can organize them all in the same place and reference them later. With that said, let's get into the actual knowledge addition and cultivation aspect of Noeko so that we can see what it's like to use Noeko as a proper knowledge base. If I go down to this button here in the bottom right, which has a plus icon, you can see that there are 4 different things that I can add. We're just going to start by adding an idea. Now, it's worth noting that there are 2 other ways to add an idea. My personal favorite is to use the keyboard shortcut Command-Shift-I, or if you're on Windows, then it would be Control-Shift-I. And there's another way as well, which is to use the spotlight search. If you press Control-K, then you can type in new idea, and the new idea command will come up and be available. Additionally, if you're on mobile, you can access the spotlight search via this icon here that you'll see, which will open up the spotlight search for you as well. With that said, for now, let's just use this simple button down here in order to add an idea to our knowledge base. So I can just start ideating. I don't have to worry about anything else for now. So let's decide something. Let's decide which knowledge base I should use. We'll start with a simple premise. Now, typically when I'm writing, I like to do things fairly freehand. I don't typically have a lot of structure to these kind of decision-making or ideation protocols. I just want to get a bunch of information. I want to get a flow going and start writing stuff down. And then I want context to be brought to me. Unfortunately, in most knowledge bases, this isn't really possible. You have to go and manually retrieve the information that you're looking for. And while that's definitely possible to do in Noeko, one of the things that's really nice about Noeko is that it will automatically bring context to your attention. So if I start thinking through the different options that I have and start adding more context to my idea, then Noeko will understand and retrieve automatically, without you having to do anything, the different items in your knowledge base which are relevant. So in this related portion down here, I can see that Obsidian software has been automatically retrieved on my behalf. I didn't have to ask it to do this. I didn't have to type in a search query. It just knew and was able to automatically bring that up without me thinking about it. So now I can easily reference this. Now, with that said, the most powerful thing you can do in a knowledge base is often creating a bidirectional link. Now, while I can easily drag and drop any idea, task, source, or excerpt into the connection area and create a connection manually, I can also create a connection in a more familiar way, which is using inline connections. So if I type this square bracket syntax where I have two repeating square brackets and then I start typing something like obsidian, then it'll bring up suggestions for me and automatically create those connections on my behalf. This way, I don't have to go all the way over to the left sidebar, or if I'm on mobile, it's easy to just add this information and add these links while you're in the flow. Now, with that said, if I am looking for something that maybe isn't available immediately, the system didn't catch it, then I can go over to the right sidebar and I can type in something like Notion. I have an idea on Notion. Now, with Noeko, it's smart, so you don't have to be super specific about the things that you're actually looking for. Perhaps instead of typing Notion specifically, I can say something like I'm looking for a knowledge base and productivity application. Now, if I type this in, Notion still comes up because you can search Noeko using natural language. So now I'll create a connection here as well because I think that Notion is very relevant to what I'm writing right now. Let's go back to those tags. Currently, we have no tags associated with these particular items. However, if I want to create a tag, I can easily do so by pressing this plus button and then creating a tag such as applications I'm considering. Now, it's worth noting that you can give a tag any name that you'd like, and the name does matter because the name will be used in order to find the most relevant things to this tag. That way, the system can intelligently suggest tag applications that you can make. With that said, let's just give this a quick description. What does this tag describe? This is an item regarding an application that I'm considering using. Now, you can think of this almost like a prompt. This will be used, and this description can include elaborations, allowing you to inform how this tag should be applied and how it should be used within your knowledge base so that it can be intelligently suggested to you over time. With that said, let's create this tag, which will then automatically be applied. Now, with that said, tags have a downside. Sometimes you come up with a great tag, but then there's this manual process where you have to go through and add that tag manually to everything that it might relate to. Well, Noeko provides a top-level view to manage your tags. That way, if I want to add something to this tag, I can simply search productivity and note-taking software, and then I can drag and drop potentially relevant ideas. I can also immediately add new ideas with this tag, and if I'd like to, I can even use a smarter categorization method. If I create a new tag, let's say note-taking. If I create a tag called note-taking and give it a description like this item is related to note-taking or knowledge management, then what I can do is go to that tag and automatically see suggested applications over here on the left. Because I have a note on choosing a knowledge base, note-taking applies. And I can easily apply that tag to the relevant idea, and then if I go back to that idea, you can see that the tag has in fact been applied. Now, one of the cool things in modern knowledge bases is being able to see all of your ideas as this big interconnected graph of knowledge that you've added over time. In Noeko, we call this the constellation. Now, in your constellation, you can easily go through and select different items. That way, if you want to go and explore, it's relatively straightforward to do so, and it's also relatively straightforward to organize. With that said, the main point is that you can see not only the different connections between the different nodes in your knowledge base, such as tags and ideas, but you can also see relationships and potential orphans, which aren't as useful as more interconnected, context-rich nodes. So you can easily go through and find tags like GitHub or Noeko dashboard build, which both of these different ideas don't have any connections to them. Now, this is that note that we decided to add earlier from the Scratchpad, and as you can see on the left, note-taking, that tag that we just made, is automatically being suggested so that I can apply it easily. And then if I go back to that note-taking view, I can see all of the different notes that I've taken on note-taking. This allows me to manage tags in a bidirectional way as well, as opposed to tags usually being unidirectionally applied. With that said, I want to get into the next feature that really allows you to take your research and knowledge aggregation to the next level. Let's talk about rabbit holes. Now, rabbit holes are a way to collect knowledge in a more flow-based fashion. So let's just create a rabbit hole and let's give it a name like building the ultimate intelligent knowledge base. If I can type. Now, over here on the right, I'm just going to do a simple search and find everything related to knowledge bases. I have my choosing a knowledge base, so I'm going to drag that in here. I have my Obsidian software and Notion productivity and note-taking. And as you can see on the left, these are actually automatically suggested for me to add to my rabbit hole. I can also go and search for different tags that I might apply. For example, note-taking. Now, you can see that I have another suggestion. This is because your suggestions over here on the left are included based on what is in your rabbit hole currently. This way, you always have the most relevant things available to you in case you come back to this rabbit hole later on and maybe you haven't added things to it explicitly. You can just find those as you go along. That way you don't have to constantly worry about maintaining and organizing your knowledge base manually. It is easy to organize it as you go. With that said, the fun comes when you actually enter a rabbit hole. So now that I've entered a rabbit hole, the point of rabbit holes is to capture knowledge in a flow-like state. So now if I add a new idea, then it will automatically be included in this rabbit hole. If I go back to the rabbit hole through this button down here, then I can see that my untitled idea that I haven't even done anything with has automatically been created. Additionally, if I was to create a tag, going through the tags view and saying these are general workflow items for ideating, and I create this tag, if I go back to my rabbit hole, then that tag is also automatically included. So as you add stuff in this mode of thinking for this particular rabbit hole, as you go down a rabbit hole and you go through this knowledge ingestion and tracking process, all of that stuff will automatically be included. And if it isn't included, then it can be suggested so that you can add it later on. And then you can easily collect all of these items and delete this rabbit hole once you don't need it anymore, or exit the rabbit hole, and then this stuff will just be saved for you to come back to later on. Now, with rabbit holes explained, the most important thing, arguably, about a knowledge base is to be able to leverage the knowledge that you store. And that's why we built Spyglass. Spyglass is an answer engine for your own knowledge. That way you can always find what you're looking for, generate reports, or generally do analysis in order to hopefully cultivate insights. With that said, let's think a little bit more about that picking the right knowledge base question. What are the different value propositions of the knowledge base applications in my notes? So very straightforward query. What Spyglass is first going to do is to run searches on your behalf, then it's going to read the results, and based on those results, it is going to provide you with an accurate natural language response based in citations directly from your notes. So, as you can see, the knowledge base applications noted, Obsidian and Notion offer distinct value propositions for users. Both are designed for note-taking and organizing information, but they differ in their feature sets and operational models. Obsidian is a personal knowledge base and note-taking application that utilizes Markdown files, whereas Notion is a productivity and note-taking web application that functions as an online-only organizational tool with a freemium subscription model. Spyglass can show me the exact excerpt from my knowledge base that it thought was relevant, as well as its reasoning for why it thought it was relevant. Then, these are used as the foundation for the different statements that it makes, ensuring accuracy. If you want to explore these findings more directly, you can click on the Findings button, which then shows you all of the different notes that were pulled from and the analysis of those notes and relevant excerpts. With that said, maybe I want to go and explore those notes more directly, so I have my right and left sidebars in order to do so, which will give me both all of the raw results that were found by the queries that Spyglass ran and all of the results that actually garnered findings. With that said, let's go back to that constellation view, because this is the point. The point of Noeko is to be able to bring structure to your knowledge base without the constant hassle of manual organization and the overhead of constantly applying tags that you have to go and find or remember, or making connections actively. These things are extremely powerful tools, but the constant overhead of having to manage them takes away from the actual thinking process where you get the best insights. So, Noeko is designed for no more cognitive residue. It's designed for emergent organization that happens over time so that you can build a knowledge base that's powerful and expressive without all of the distractions. With that said, I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoy your time in Noeko. Again, leave us as much feedback as you feel comfortable with. We will read it, and we are looking for as much as we can get. Check out that waitlist below if you're interested in trying Noeko, as we are currently in early access. Leave a like on this video if you find this helpful, and consider subscribing to help the channel grow so that we can help bring clarity to more people's scattered thoughts. With that said, it's been great. My name is Aiden, signing off.